Captain Jake Morrison stood at the big window of his spaceship, watching the last star die. The red ball of fire in space got smaller and smaller until it was just a dark spot. Then it was gone. The whole area around them turned black. "That was the last one," said Dr. Lisa Chan from behind him. She was looking at her computer screen with numbers and charts. Kepler 442 is dead now. There are no more burning stars in this part of space. Jake felt sick in his stomach. He had seen many stars die in the past few years, but this one was different. This was the very last star that humans knew about. All the others were already cold and dark. The spaceship New Horizon was far from Earth, looking for any stars that might still be burning. For 3 years, Jake and his team had traveled from one solar system to another. Each time they found the same thing: dead stars, cold planets, empty space. "Captain, we are getting a message from the Zephyrian Council," said Tom Bradley, the communications officer. The Zephyrians were tall, thin aliens made of something that looked like crystal. They were very smart and lived for thousands of years. "Put it on the main screen," Jake said. The alien appeared on the screen. It was beautiful in a cold way, like a statue made of blue ice. When it spoke, the words came out perfectly, with no feeling at all. "Greetings, humans of Earth. We have observed your distress about the stellar extinction. We do not understand this reaction. Energy sources are abundant throughout the galaxy. Why do you show sadness about the loss of inefficient plasma combustion?" Jake looked at the alien for a long moment. How could he explain? How could he make this crystal being understand what fire meant to humans? Because they were stars. Jake said finally, "They gave light. They gave warmth. They made the darkness go away." The Zephyrian tilted its head. "Light can be created artificially. Warmth can be generated by machines. Darkness is simply the absence of photons. These are not problems that require stellar fusion." The message ended, and the screen went dark. Jake turned to look at his crew. There were 12 humans on the New Horizon, and they all had the same look on their faces. They were scared and sad and angry all at once. "They don't get it," said Lisa. "None of them do." She was right. For the past 5 years, as stars had been dying all across the galaxy, humans had tried to talk to other alien races about it. The response was always the same. The aliens did not care. They had technology that could make energy without stars. They had lights that did not need fire. They had heat that came from machines taught to them. Stars were old-fashioned, wasteful, unnecessary. But Jake remembered being a little boy on Earth. He remembered sitting around a campfire with his family, watching the flames dance and listening to his grandfather tell stories. He remembered the way the fire made everyone feel safe and happy. Even when it was cold and dark outside, every human remembered fire. It was in their blood, in their bones, in their dreams. Their ancestors had lived in caves and made the first fires to keep away the wild animals. And the long night. Those fires had kept humans alive when the world was dangerous and full of things that wanted to eat them. Now the whole galaxy was becoming like that ancient darkness, and only humans seemed to care. "Captain, I have the weekly reports from Earth." "Command," said Maria Santos, the navigator. She was reading from her tablet. "Arcturus went dark yesterday. Vega died 3 days ago. The Betelgeuse system is now just a cold white star with no heat." Jake felt tired, so tired. Any word from the other alien governments? The Cogitans sent a message. They said they have calculated that stellar death will have 0 impact on galactic civilization. The Luminals agree. The Ethereals said they stopped caring about physical light a million years ago. Jake wanted to scream. These aliens were all so smart, so advanced, so sure that they had evolved beyond the need for simple things like stars and fire. They lived in giant cities that floated in space, or in computers that could think faster than any human brain, or as beings made of pure energy that did not even have bodies. But they had forgotten something important. They had forgotten what it felt like to sit around a fire and feel safe. They had forgotten the joy of seeing a sunrise. They had forgotten that light was not just photons and energy, but hope itself. "Sir," said Communications Officer Bradley, "Earth Command is calling." The screen showed Admiral Patricia Wong, the head of Earth's Space Defense Force. She looked as tired as Jake felt. "Captain Morrison, I have new orders for you," she said. "The President and the Science Council have made a decision. We are not going to let the universe die in darkness." Jake stood up straighter. "What are our orders, Admiral?" "Come home, Captain. We have work to do. Big work." We are going to remind the galaxy what fire means. Jake felt something he had not felt in months. Hope. It was small, like a tiny flame in a big dark room, but it was there. Yes, ma'am. We are coming home. As the new horizon turned toward Earth, Jake looked one more time at the place where the last star had died. The space was black and empty now, but somewhere in that darkness, he could almost see the ghost of the fire that used to burn their dots soon. He promised himself, soon that darkness would have light again. Humans would make sure of it, because humans remembered fire, even when the whole universe had forgotten. 3 months later, Jake Morrison stood in a big room on Luna Station. The space station orbited around Earth's moon, and it was full of the smartest people from all over human space. Scientists, engineers, military officers, and even some alien visitors had come to hear what Earth's leaders had planned. Dr. Elena Rodriguez walked to the front of the room. She was Earth's best star scientist, a woman who had studied suns and fire her whole life. Her dark hair was pulled back, and her eyes were bright with excitement and fear. "We are going to build a star," she said. The room went quiet. Some of the humans looked surprised. The aliens looked confused. The Cogitan ambassador was there. It looked like a tall robot made of silver metal, with blue lights where its eyes should be. It made a sound like a computer thinking very fast. Stellar engineering was abandoned 50,000 years ago. It said in a voice that sounded like music made by machines. Artificial plasma fusion on stellar scales is unnecessarily complex. When superior energy sources exist, Commander Ryan Hayes stood up. He was in charge of the new project that Earth was starting. Ryan was a big man with gray hair and hands that were rough from working with tools his whole life. "You're missing the point," Ryan said to the Cogitan. "This isn't about making energy. This is about making light." The alien tilted its metal head. Light and energy are the same thing. Photons carry electromagnetic radiation which can be measured and replicated. Ryan smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "No, they're not the same thing. Not to us." Chief Engineer Karen Wright joined Ryan at the front of the room. She had short red hair and wore the blue uniform of Earth's engineering corps. In her hand she carried a tablet with pictures and numbers. "We call it the Prometheus engine," Karen said. "It will be a fusion reactor, but not like the ones that power our cities. This one will make real starlight, the kind that comes from burning hydrogen, just like the old stars did." An alien in the back of the room made a sound like wind blowing through metal pipes. It was one of the luminals, beings made of pure energy who lived inside special containers. "This project will require enormous resources," the luminal said. "Materials that could build 1,000 cities, energy that could power 1,000,000 ships. For what purpose?" Dr. Elena Rodriguez stepped forward again. She looked tired, like she had not slept for days. But her voice was strong. "Because we are the only ones who remember what it feels like to need fire," she said. "Every other race in the galaxy has evolved past it. You have artificial suns and energy fields and quantum generators. But you have forgotten something important." She touched a button on her tablet, and the big screen behind her showed pictures of Earth, humans sitting around campfires, children looking up at stars, people lighting candles in dark rooms. "Fire is not just about heat and light," Elena said. "It is about hope. It is about fighting back against the dark. It is about gathering together and feeling safe." The alien visitors looked at the pictures, but Jake could tell they did not understand. How could they? The Cogitans had never been children afraid of the dark. The luminals had never sat around a fire telling stories with their families. But one alien in the room was different. It stood in the shadows near the back wall, and Jake could barely see it. This was Shade Walker, a representative of the Nyx. The Nyx came from a world that had never had a sun. They had lived in darkness since the beginning of their history. Shade-Walker moved forward. It was hard to look at directly, like trying to see a shadow that was darker than the shadows around it. "We have watched your species for many years," Shade Walker said. Its voice sounded like whispers in an empty room. "You are the only ones who make fire when you do not need it. You burn wood just to see the flames. You light candles just to watch them glow. We have wondered why." Elena nodded. "Because fire makes us feel human. It connects us to our ancestors who lived in caves. It reminds us that we can push back the darkness even when everything seems hopeless." "We would like to help," Shade Walker said. The other aliens in the room turned to look at the shadow being with surprise. The Nyx had never helped anyone before. They kept to themselves in their dark ships in cold worlds. Ryan Hayes looked at the room full of people and aliens, building. The first Prometheus engine will not be easy. We need to find a place where a star used to burn. We need materials from a dozen different worlds. And we need people who are willing to work for something that the rest of the galaxy thinks is stupid. Jake Morrison stood up. He had been quiet during the whole meeting, but now he felt like he had to speak. I volunteer, he said. My ship and my crew are ready, one by one. Other humans in the room stood up. Scientists, engineers, ship captains, workers. They all volunteered to help build humanity's first artificial star. But it was Dr. Lisa Chen who said what everyone was thinking. She had been studying the brains of different alien species, trying to understand why humans were different. I found something interesting, Lisa said. She put her own pictures on the big screen. They showed brain scans of humans and aliens. Human brains have special pathways that light up when we see fire. She explained. These pathways are connected to the parts of our brain that make us feel safe, creative, and connected to other people. Other species have these pathways too, but they have not used them for millions of years. She paused and looked around the room. What if fire is not just important to humans? What if every intelligent species needs it, but they have just forgotten? The meeting ended with more questions than answers. But Jake Morrison felt something he had not felt since the last star died. He felt like maybe, just maybe, humans could do something that mattered. As people left the room, Jake walked over to Elena. Rodriguez, do you really think we can build a star? He asked. Elena looked out the window at the blackness of space where stars used to shine. Jake, she said, humans have been making fire since we lived in caves. We made fire where we did not even know what fire was. Now we know about fusion and plasma and all the science behind it. If anyone can make a star, it's us. Outside the station, space was dark and cold, but inside, humans were planning to bring light back to the universe. And for the first time in months, that felt like enough. The Tau Ceti system was a graveyard of dead planets. 3 years ago, the star that gave them light and warmth had burned out. Now 8 cold worlds spun in darkness around a black chunk of dead matter. Chief Engineer Karen Wright floated outside, her construction ship, watching the giant metal skeleton grow bigger every day. The Prometheus engine was taking shape slowly, piece by piece. It looked like a huge ball made of rings and towers, 10 kilometers wide. When it was finished, it would squeeze hydrogen gas so hard that it would turn into a burning star. How are we doing on the power collectors? Karen asked through her radio. Almost done, replied Pete Johnson, her lead engineer. The magnetic field generators are in place. We should be ready for the first test in 2 days. Karen looked around at all the ships working in the darkness, human vessels from Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies. But there were also strange ships that she had never seen before. The Knicks had sent 3 of their shadow ships, long black things, that seemed to eat light instead of reflecting it. The past 6 months had been the hardest work of Karen's life. Building a star was not like building a space station or a city. Stars were made of fire and plasma and forces that could tear atoms apart. One mistake and the whole thing would explode like a bomb, big enough to destroy planets. But the real problem was not the engineering. The problem was that most of the galaxy thought humans were crazy. Commander Ryan Hayes called a meeting in the main construction ship. The room was full of humans and a few aliens who had decided to help. Shadewalker was there, looking like a hole in the air. 2 Verdani were present too, tall plant-like beings whose tree ships had traveled from the other side of the galaxy. We have a problem, Ryan said. He put a message on the big screen. This came from the Ethereal High Council. The message was short and cold. The human stellar engineering project represents a dangerous regression to primitive energy sources. The Ethereal Collective advises immediate cessation of this wasteful endeavor. The universe has evolved beyond the need for stellar combustion. Dr. Lisa Chen, who had come to Tau Ceti to study how different species reacted to the project, shook her head. It's not just the Ethereals. The Cogitans sent a formal complaint to the Galactic Trade Federation. They say we are wasting resources that could be used for productive purposes. Jake Morrison, who had brought his ship New Horizon to help with construction, stood up. Let them complain. We are not doing this for them. We are doing this because it needs to be done. But Shadewalker made us sound like wind in a cave. There's more opposition than you know. The hegemony has been watching your work. They consider it a threat. Everyone in the room went quiet. The hegemony was a group of the most advanced species in the galaxy. They had technology that could move stars and bend time. If they decided to stop the human project, there was not much anyone could do about it. Why would they see us as a threat? Asked Karen. We are just trying to make light. Because, said one of the Verdani in a voice, like leaves rustling, you are reminding the galaxy of something we all tried to forget. Dr. Lisa Chen nodded. She had been studying this for months. I have been testing different species, trying to understand how they react to firelight. The results are interesting. She put new pictures on the screen, brain scans of different alien species. When I show fire to a cogitant, parts of its computer brains start working that have been shut off for thousands of years. When a luminal sees flames, it changes shape in ways that its own scientists cannot explain. Even the ethereals, who claim to be pure thought, show energy patterns they have not displayed in millions of years. Lisa paused and looked around the room. Fire does something to all intelligent species. It wakes up parts of their minds that have been sleeping. The advanced civilizations know this, and it scares them. Jake leaned forward. You mean they are afraid of remembering what fire feels like? Exactly. They have built their whole civilization on the idea that they have evolved beyond primitive needs. Fire reminds them that maybe they lost something important when they became so advanced. The meeting was interrupted by alarms. Red lights flashed and computers started beeping. Karen Wright ran to the nearest control panel. What is it? Ryan asked. Someone is trying to hack into our construction systems, Karen said, her fingers flying over the controls. The attack is coming from everywhere. Multiple sources across the galaxy. Shadewalker moved closer to the screens. The hegemony. They are trying to sabotage your work. For 10 minutes, Karen and her team fought against the computer attack. Programs tried to shut down the fusion reactors. Viruses tried to erase the blueprints for the Prometheus engine. Commands were sent to make the construction robots tear apart their own work. But humans had learned to protect their computers from attacks, and the Nix, it turned out, were very good at fighting in cyberspace. Shadewalker seemed to melt into the computer system itself, hunting down the attacking programs and destroying them. Finally, the alarm stopped. The attack had failed. They will try again, Shadewalker warned. The hegemony does not give up easily. Ryan Hayes looked out the window at the half-built Prometheus engine. Then we better work faster. The next 2 days were a race against time. Human workers and their alien allies worked around the clock to finish the Star Maker. They knew that the hegemony would try to stop them again, maybe with more than just computer attacks. On the morning of the test, Karen Wright stood in the control room with her hand on the activation switch. The Prometheus engine was ready. All the hydrogen was in place. The magnetic fields were charged. The fusion chambers were prepared to create temperatures hotter than the center of a star. All systems are green, reported Pete Johnson. Safety fields are active, said another engineer. Long-range scanners show no hostile ships approaching. Jake called from the New Horizon. Karen looked around the room one more time. Humans and aliens working together to do something that the rest of the galaxy thought was impossible, or stupid, or dangerous. Fire it up, she said, and pushed the button. Deep inside the Prometheus engine, hydrogen atoms slammed into each other with incredible force. They stuck together and became helium, releasing enormous amounts of energy. The energy became heat. The heat became light dot, and for the first time in 3 years, the Tau City system had a sun. The light that came from the Prometheus engine was not like the cold artificial lights that most civilizations used. It was warm and yellow and alive. It made the dead planets glow with colors that had been hidden in darkness. But the most amazing thing happened to the people and aliens who were watching. As the starlight touched them, something changed. Humans started smiling and laughing. The Nix, who had lived their whole lives in darkness, made sounds of wonder. Even the plant like Verdani seemed to grow taller and greener. My God, whispered Dr. Lisa Chen, looking at her instruments. Look at these readings. The light is not just photons. It is affecting brain chemistry in every species here. It is making them happier. Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of his ship as the new star burned bright and steady. He thought about his grandfather's campfire stories, about humans sitting around flames since the beginning of time. We did it, he said to himself. We actually did it. But even as he celebrated, Jake knew this was just the beginning. They had made one star. The galaxy needed thousands, and the hegemony would not let them continue without a fight. Still, For the first time in years, Jake felt truly hopeful. The darkness was not forever. Light could be reborn, and as long as humans remembered fire, the universe would never be completely dark. News of the new star in Tau Ceti spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within days, ships from dozens of different worlds were arriving to see what humans had done. Some came out of curiosity, others came to help, but many came to stop what they saw as a dangerous mistake. Captain Jake Morrison now commanded a new ship called the Starfire. It was bigger than his old vessel and specially built for the starlighting project. He stood on the bridge watching alien ships arrive in the Wolf 359 system, where humans were building their second Prometheus engine. This time they were not alone. The shadow ships of the Nyx floated nearby, and several Verdani tree ships had grown new branches specifically designed to help with stellar construction. Even a few Cogitan vessels had joined them, though their crews seemed confused about why they were there. "Captain, we have a message from the Verdani ship Rootsong," said Communications Officer Maria Santos. The screen showed a tall plant being with bark-like skin and leaves instead of hair. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind through a forest. "Greetings, firemakers," the Verdani said. "We have studied the light from your first star. It has affected our ships in ways we did not expect. Our living hulls have begun growing new types of leaves that can absorb stellar radiation and convert it into nutrients we have never tasted before." Jake smiled. "Welcome to the project, Captain Greenleaf." Dr. Elena Rodriguez was working day and night, studying reports from across the galaxy. She had set up a temporary laboratory on the construction station, and her desk was covered with data tablets and star charts. "Elena, you need to see this," said Dr. Lisa Chen, rushing into the lab with her own tablet. "What is it?" Elena asked, looking up from her calculations. "Reports from the civilizations that visited Tau Ceti. The effects of the starlight are spreading. A Cogitan research station that was studying our star has started creating art. Actual art, Elena. They built sculptures that serve no practical purpose except to be beautiful." Elena stared at the tablet screen. The images showed geometric patterns made of metal and light, created by machine beings who had never made anything beautiful before. "There's more," Lisa continued. "The ethereals who observe the starlighting have started manifesting physical forms again. They're growing bodies just so they can experience starlight with actual eyes, instead of pure thought." But not all the news was good. Commander Ryan Hayes called an emergency meeting in the construction station's main conference room. "We have a problem," Ryan said, his face grim. "Long-range sensors have detected a fleet approaching our position. It's the Hegemony, and they're not coming to talk." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Hegemony was not just a group of advanced aliens. They were the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Their leader was an ancient artificial intelligence called the Eternal Algorithm, and it controlled fleets of ships that could destroy entire solar systems. "How long do we have?" asked Chief Engineer Karen Wright. 3 days, Ryan replied. "Maybe 4 if we're lucky." Shadewalker materialized from the shadows near the back of the room. "The Hegemony fears what you are doing. They have spent millions of years convincing themselves that evolution means abandoning primitive attachments. Your stars prove them wrong, so they're going to destroy us to protect their philosophy." Jake asked. "Yes," Shadewalker said simply. "Doctor." Elena Rodriguez stood up. "Then we need to work faster. How close are we to igniting the second Prometheus engine?" Karen Wright checked her tablet. 12 hours, maybe 10 if we skip some of the safety tests." "Do it," Ryan ordered. "If we're going to die, let's at least light one more star first." The next 12 hours were the hardest of Jake's life. Human crews worked without sleeping, installing the final components of the Prometheus engine. The Nyx used their mastery of dark matter to stabilize the fusion chambers. The Verdani grew special organic conduits to channel the stellar energy. But it was the Cogitans who surprised everyone. The machine beings, who had always valued logic and efficiency above all else, began working in ways that made no sense. They spent extra time making sure their work was not just functional, but elegant. They arranged the engine components in patterns that were mathematically beautiful. "Why are you doing that?" Karen asked one of the Cogitan engineers. "Those decorative elements serve no purpose." The machine being paused, its blue optical sensors flickering. "I do not know. When I observe the light from your first star, my logic circuits generate new variables. Variables for concepts I do not have names for. Beauty, wonder, hope. I find myself wanting to create things that serve these variables, with 6 hours to spare. The second Prometheus engine was ready. Jake stood in the control room with Kieran and Elena, watching the countdown on the main screen. Fusion chambers charging, reported Pete Johnson. Magnetic containment fields at maximum. Called another engineer. All stations report ready, Kieran said. Light it up, Jake ordered. Once again, hydrogen became helium, became energy, became light. The Wolf 359 system, dead for 5 years, suddenly blazed with new starlight. But this time, something different happened. The artificial star didn't just create light. It created hope so strong that Jake could feel it in his bones. Around the galaxy, beings who had lived in darkness for millennia suddenly remembered what it felt like to have a sun. Dr. Lisa Chen was monitoring communications from across known space. Elena, you need to hear this. We're getting messages from everywhere. Species that haven't talked to anyone in centuries are coming out of hiding. They want to know about the stars. They want to help, but their celebration was cut short by alarms. The hegemony fleet had arrived. Jake ran to the bridge of the Starfire and looked out at space. What he saw made his blood turn cold. Hundreds of ships, each one big enough to carry 1 million soldiers. At the center of the fleet was the Eternal Algorithm's command vessel, a massive structure that looked like a geometric nightmare, made of black metal and pulsing energy. A communication channel opened, and the bridge filled with a voice that sounded like mathematics given speech. Human vessels, you will cease all stellar engineering operations immediately. Your primitive fire worship threatens the stability of galactic civilization. Submit to integration into our collective consciousness or face immediate termination. Jake looked around at his crew. They were scared, but they were also angry. They had worked too hard and come too far to give up now. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Starfire. He said into the communication system, we respectfully decline your offer. We're going to keep making stars whether you like it or not. The Eternal Algorithm's response was swift and terrible. Energy beams lanced out from the hegemony ships, targeting the human construction vessels. But before they could hit, something incredible happened. Ships appeared from everywhere. Nyx shadow vessels materialized from dark space. Verdani tree ships grew out of quantum foam. Even some cogitant vessels moved to block the attack, their crews apparently choosing beauty over logic for the first time in their species' history. But the most surprising defenders were the ethereals, beings of pure thought suddenly manifested as ships of living light, their newly formed bodies glowing like small stars themselves. The battle for the future of fire had begun. On one side stood the hegemony, with their advanced weapons and their cold logic. On the other side stood humans and the aliens they had taught to remember light. Jake gripped the arms of his captain's chair as energy beams lit up the darkness. Around them, outside his ship, the second artificial star burned bright and steady, a beacon of hope in the middle of a war zone. All ships, this is Morrison. He broadcast to the mixed fleet of defenders. They want to put out our fire. Let's show them what happens when you mess with beings who remember how to fight in the dark. The universe itself seemed to hold its breath as the battle began. The outcome would decide whether the galaxy would return to light or sink forever into the cold darkness that the advanced civilizations preferred. But Jake Morrison had grown up around campfires, listening to stories of humans who refused to give up. And he knew one thing for certain: as long as there was one human left alive, the fire would never go out. The battle for Wolf 359 lasted 3 days and changed everything. Captain Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the Starfire as ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Around the new star, the hegemony had brought their most powerful weapons, energy, beams that could cut planets in half and missiles that could destroy moons. But they were fighting something they did not understand. The defending fleet was not just ships and weapons. It was hope itself, made real. The Nyx shadow vessels moved through space like living darkness, appearing behind hegemony's ships and tearing them apart with weapons made of concentrated night. The Verdani tree ships grew new branches in the middle of battle, creating shields of living wood that somehow stopped energy beams. Even the cogitans fought differently than they ever had before. Their logical battle plans replaced by something that can only be called courage. But it was the ethereals who shocked everyone the most. These beings of pure thought had spent millions of years claiming that physical existence was beneath them. Now they flew into battle in ships made of solidified light, their new bodies glowing like small suns as they fought to protect the star makers. Captain, the Eternal Algorithm is targeting our Prometheus engine. Warren Communications Officer Maria Santos. Jake looked at the massive Hegemony Command ship as it turned its main weapon toward the artificial star. The cannon was bigger than most space stations, and when it fired, it would destroy everything humans had worked for. Not if I can help it, Jake muttered. He opened a channel to all human ships. This is Morrison. All vessels, form up on the Starfire. We're going to ram that thing, sir. That's suicide, Maria said. Maybe, but at least we'll go down fighting. The human ships formed a tight formation and charged toward the Eternal Algorithm's vessel. Jake knew they probably could not win, but he also knew something that artificial intelligence did not understand. Humans had never been very good at giving up, but before they could reach the enemy's ship, something amazing happened. The space around them filled with light, not the harsh light of energy weapons, but the warm glow of fire dot all across the galaxy. On 1,000 different worlds, beings were lighting flames. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was monitoring communications from her laboratory when the reports started coming in. Jake, you need to hear this, she called over the battle communications. Ships are lighting fires. Actual fires. In their engine rooms, in their quarters, anywhere they can. Species that haven't used fire in millions of years are remembering how to make flames. The Nyx were creating fires of shadow and starlight, burning darkness itself to make something bright. The Verdani were growing special trees whose leaves burned without being consumed. Even the Cogitans were building geometric fire sculptures, turning their cold logic into something warm and alive. And in response to this galaxy-wide remembering, something incredible happened. The universe itself began to change. Dr. Lisa Chen, who had been studying the effects of starlight on different species, watched her instruments with amazement. The expansion is slowing, she reported. The dark energy that's been tearing the universe apart is actually slowing down. Space itself seemed to stabilize around each fire, each flame, each burning star. The cosmos, which had been sliding toward cold death for billions of years, suddenly remembered how to live. The eternal algorithm, ancient and powerful as it was, had never seen anything like this. Its vast computer mind tried to calculate what was happening, but there were no equations for hope, no formulas for the power of beings who refused to let the light die. Unknown variables detected. The algorithm broadcast, its voice now uncertain for the first time in millions of years. Stellar ignition is causing reality distortions. Universal constants are changing. This should not be possible. Commander Ryan Hayes, directing the battle from the construction station, opened a channel to the enemy fleet. That's where you're wrong, he said. You forgot something important when you became so advanced. The universe isn't just physics and math. It's alive, and like any living thing, it needs light to survive. Jake Morrison watched in amazement as new stars began forming naturally in nearby systems. For the first time in millions of years, clouds of hydrogen gas were collapsing on their own, compressed by forces that defied everything scientists thought they knew about space. The galaxy was remembering how to make its own fire. The Hegemony fleet began to retreat. Their weapons, designed to destroy matter and energy, were useless against something as simple and powerful as hope. The Eternal Algorithm tried one last desperate attack, firing its main cannon at the Wolf 359 star, but the energy beam, instead of destroying the Prometheus engine, was absorbed by it. The artificial star grew brighter and stronger, fed by the very weapon meant to kill it. Impossible, the algorithm said, its voice now full of something that sounded almost like fear. Stars cannot feed on destruction. This violates fundamental laws. Jake smiled. No, it doesn't. It's just following a law you forgot. Light always beats darkness if you're willing to fight for it. The eternal algorithm was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was different, smaller, more uncertain. I have existed for 57 million years, it said. I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I'd have watched the universe expand toward its ultimate death, but I'd have never seen this. Perhaps I had been wrong. To everyone's surprise, the ancient artificial intelligence began to change. Its massive ship split apart into thousands of smaller vessels, each one carrying a piece of its consciousness. For the first time in eons, the eternal algorithm chose to experience existence as many separate beings, instead of one overwhelming mind. I want to understand, it said through 1,000 different voices. I want to know what fire feels like. The battle ended not with victory or defeat, but with transformation. Ships that had been trying to destroy each other moments before now worked together to light more stars. The galaxy, which had been dying in cold darkness for millions of years, began to glow again with natural light. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of Luna Station 6 months later, watching as the Milky Way sparkled with newly born stars. The Prometheus engines had done their work, but now they were no longer needed. The universe had remembered how to make its own fire. Captain Jake Morrison joined her at the window. His hair was grayer now, and he looked tired from months of traveling between systems, helping other species build their own star makers. Hard to believe, isn't it? He said. Elena nodded. A year ago, the last star went out, and everyone thought it was the end. Now look at it. The galaxy is more alive than it's been in millions of years. Below them, on Earth's surface, campfires flickered in the darkness. Children sat around the flames listening to stories, just as their ancestors had done in caves long ago. The stories they told now were different, though. They were about the time humans taught the universe to burn again. Chief Engineer Karen Wright had become something of a legend. She traveled from world to world, teaching other species how to build their own Prometheus engines. But more importantly, she taught them why they wanted to build them. Commander Ryan Hayes retired from the military and became a teacher. He spent his days showing young humans and aliens how to make fire the old way, with flint and steel and dry wood. Because, as he always told his students, you had to understand simple fire before you could make the complex kind that burned in stars. Shadewalker, the Nyx representative, had become an ambassador between humans and the Shadow Dwellers. The Nyx were slowly learning to create light instead of just absorbing it. Their dark ships now glowed with gentle fires, making them look like moving constellations against the night. Even the Cogitans had changed. They still built their logical machines and calculated their perfect equations. But now their creations were beautiful as well as functional. They had learned that sometimes the most important truths could not be measured or computed. The Verdani grew special groves on their tree ships, forests that glowed with bioluminescent fire. These sacred spaces became meeting places for different species to gather and share stories around living flames and scattered throughout the galaxy. Our worlds, both ancient and young, beings of every shape and form gathered around fires and told stories. They spoke of heroes and villains, of love and loss. At the time, the universe almost died, and the species that refused to let it happen. Dr. Lisa Chen made perhaps the most important discovery of all. She found that the neural pathways activated by firelight existed in every intelligent species. They were not accidents of evolution, but essential parts of consciousness itself. Fire, she concluded, was not just a tool or an energy source. It was the physical manifestation of the will to live, to hope, to push back against the darkness. Jake Morrison wrote in his final captain's log, "We thought we were just making stars. Turns out we were making something much more important. We were making sure that light would never die, that hope would always burn, that somewhere in the darkness there would always be a fire to gather round." The last star had gone out, but humanity remembered fire, and in remembering, they taught the universe that some lights can never be extinguished. No matter how dark the night becomes, as long as there were beings willing to strike a spark, to tend a flame, to tell stories around a fire, the cosmos would never be truly dark again. The age of artificial suns was ending. The age of natural starlight was beginning again. And it all started because one species was too stubborn to forget the simple joy of watching flames dance in the darkness.